Okay, so welcome everybody. I guess TESIC presents Intro to Google Forms. I believe this might be the, I don't know, ninth or 10th session, something like that, maybe more, that TESIC is offered with respect to Google Workspace. I'm going to be, I guess, the lead here today. My name is Christine Elliott. I am a member at large. Is that correct, Melissa? Member
Yep.
at large. Yeah, for TESIC. And I guess I'm a teacher at the English school district, and my official title is itinerant for maker education and coding. And yeah, so my second in command here, I guess, is Melissa, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Yeah. So anybody who's not familiar with me, my name is Melissa Lee. I am currently vice president of TESIC. And I also am the counterpart of Christine in terms of my teacher job, I guess. So I'll be kind of assisting today. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to pop them in the chat, raise up your hand or speak up, and we'll be more than happy to help you out as much as we can. So with that, Christine, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can take over. Oh, you're muted.
That's the second time I did that day in online session. So I created a very short slide deck here. I'm not going to go through this slide deck, but it's kind of more like a reference for you that you can have at the end of the session if you need to go back and reference anything. And basically, Melissa, you can put the link into this slide deck so everybody can have access to it. Everything that is in this today is just screenshots of things that we will be going through. And we were trying to come up with a basic kind of intro to Google Forms. So if anything we're doing here today, you're aware of, you know about, and you feel like it's not for you, we are not going to be upset if you need to leave or whatever. Completely your time to learn. So you do what's best for you. We sort of just took Google Forms and said, like, what are the truly basic things that is needed in order to be able to use Google Forms and to use them with your classroom and your students for, formative assessment purposes, ideally. And this is the slide deck that we sort of put together. So ultimately, the objectives, hopefully we can create just a simple Google form, go through some of the 10 things that are on this slide deck, and just go through. And anytime you have any questions, certainly stop, ask them, put them in the chat, or just unmute yourself, and we'll take it from there. And if we have any time left over, we'll hopefully have a bit of time to look at some of the different features yourself. And if you see something there you want to ask questions about, you can certainly do that at that section. So with that being said, I'm not going to go through this slide deck because we're going to do it live in real time, everything that is on the slide deck. So hopefully you have the ability to follow along with what I'm doing. I've got two screens here on the go, and what I would suggest for everybody to do now is I'm just going to go to a new tab, and we're going to go to a blank form. Basically, we're going to create a new Google form, and there's a couple of ways of doing that. You can go to your waffle here, come down and click on Forms. That will bring you directly to the ability to create forms and blank assessments, or pick from a template. If you're in Drive, another instance, you could be in Drive, and that's the way in which I'm going to do it right now. You could be in Drive with all of your documents. You can just click on New and come down here to Forms, and I'll ask you specifically, blank form or blank quiz. I always start with a blank quiz, and some people ask, well, what's the difference between the two? It's really truly just the settings options in the blank form to the blank quiz. Blank quiz has a little bit more with respect to the settings options that you got to consider than a blank form. And so as a consequence, so we can see all of the settings, I'm just going to click on blank quiz and start from there. And this is what pops up. Now, to get into the settings, if you can see along top here, you've got questions, responses, and settings. So out of the 10 things that we're going to talk about today, the first one was creating the form itself. So hopefully everybody's got the form created. The second thing we're going to talk about is here the settings. So if you click on this settings tab here, it brings up a large kind of list of different things that you need to consider. Making this a quiz. If you did not want to assign point values, set answers, and have the ability to provide feedback in any of your questions, you would just toggle this off. If you toggle this off, it's basically now a blank form. It's not a blank quiz anymore. It's just a blank form. If you toggle it back on, it is now, the settings have, I guess, established itself to be a blank quiz. That's truly, the biggest distinction between a quiz, a blank quiz, and a blank form. Now, there's some things here that you can see that you really, truly need to consider. Releasing grades. If I have or I'm making an assessment, just for formative assessment purposes, you can leave feedback and have all of your questions assigned a point value of 0. So don't get too hung up on this and thinking that everything is going to be, sent to the students in terms of you got 95% or you got 90 or 92% or whatever. I don't typically take that route, obviously, for many different reasons, but this right here, don't get too hung up on that. You can give them immediate feedback after submission, or you can turn this off right here and later after manual review. I usually leave it immediately after submission so they get the immediate feedback and they know, if they've got something or they need guidance with respect to what's the best route to go if they, in fact, are having a little bit of difficulty and didn't get the correct response. The lock mode here, you can actually toggle this on and students aren't allowed to open up any other applications. And that's truly if you're really, strict to the point where you're only asking them questions that they can recall themselves. I typically don't have this on because for me personally, I'm looking to, gain some understanding with respect to what they're thinking. And if they need a little bit of help from Google, I'm okay with that. But some may not be. Completely up to you how you handle that one right there. Other things, these are all default on. So respondents can see which questions were incorrect. They can see questions, the correct answers after released. And so you can scroll through all of this and see exactly what's on or off. And if you didn't want any of these features, certainly all you would need to do is go ahead and just toggle them off. And this one right here, the quiz default point value, you can give point values to your questions if you want. I just typically leave it at 0 because I use Google Forms for formative assessment purposes so I can gain some understanding of what students are thinking. And so it just better help, guide my own kind of teaching with the students. Is there any questions on any of those settings so far?
Seems good in the chat.
Seems good. All right. And these two are here, responses and presentation. So if you hit the down arrow here, you can toggle some things on. So collect email addresses. This right here, you can toggle it on and you will automatically collect the email address that your students are responding with, like their NLESD student account. I typically leave these all at default. And the only one that I really truly look at is this one right here. Restrict to users in NLESD and its trusted organizations. If this is toggled on, then basically it's going to require students to be in their NLESD student account in order to be able to answer or progress through the form and answer any of the questions that you have in your form. If I was going to share this with somebody outside the NLESD organization, say, for instance, I want to share it with parents and I want to say, hey, well, what type of mobile devices or what type of devices do you have at home to support online learning? I definitely would toggle that off because they would not be able to click on the form and fill it out because it would require them to basically be in the NLESD organization. Presentation here, you can look at that. And you can show a progress bar. So students, if they're at question 1 and you got 5 questions, then at the bottom, it gets to see a progress bar and they get to see, how far away they are from being complete in the form. So you can toggle that on if you want to. By default, it's off. shuffle the question order. I usually leave that off, simply due to the fact that when I put forms together, it's usually done in an order that I want. And there's a reason or rationale in my head anyway, most times, for why I've got the questions in the orders I do. Confirmation message. Right now, by default, once the students or anybody clicks on the form, answers the questions in the form, and then clicks on submit, they will see this standard, your response has been recorded. You can edit that, obviously, just by putting in whatever, and type in thanks for answering, I don't know, I can't spell, by the way, answering the, I don't know, math questions. Maybe it's a math form questions. So you can make it more personalized. I find this is good too, because a lot of the times at the end when people submit, they're like, wait, did that go through? And if it is a personalized message, then hopefully they can see that personalized message just a little bit better and say, oh, okay, yeah, that is in fact, what I just submitted, versus the generic kind of like thanks or your response. If you want them to show or be able to submit another response, this is by default on. If you didn't want to see or didn't want that ability there, you would toggle it off. There's other things that you can see here as well, but basically that's some of the things that I would certainly look at, and you can review all the rest if you want. You can, here under form defaults, if you clicked on that, you can, this is like how, these are parameters in which you would always want to set to be a certain way by default. And you can, right now, this here is toggle off, click email addresses by default. If you always wanted to do that, then obviously click that on. But, in this case, we're not going to do that. And question defaults, you can set up anytime you add new questions, there's always certain parameters. Make questions required by default. You can change that here if you want to, or you can actually change it in the actual form itself when you do your creation. So this right here, all this basically means is, when you go into a form and if you forgot something, it won't let you submit the form if you've forgotten the question. So you can make some questions required and other questions not. Right now, once I create a question, by default, they will always be a required, but you can toggle that on and off for particular questions when you're actually in the forms and you're doing the creation of the forms yourself. It's super important to look at your settings. Oftentimes, the settings is something that is overlooked, and especially if you're sending a form to an external organization, you'll probably get some messages saying, I can't access the form, and it's possibly due to the fact that your settings are not set appropriately. So I'll pause there. Hopefully that's not too, I heard a beep.
Yep, Tina has a question, it looks like. Go ahead there, Tina.
Hi, I'm on my Mac while you're here because I didn't want to kick myself out if I went into a new tab, which is probably what I would do. So lock mode, is not on my Mac computer. So is that a new feature of this, that you got to have an updated computer or something, or maybe my software is not updated? I don't know, because it comes like after manual review, then it says missed questions, like that locked mode. Yeah, is not there on my computer.
What account are you on? Are you on your NLESD account?
No, I'm on my Gmail on my Mac.
Yeah, if you're on a personal account, you probably are not going to see that lock mode. I believe that might be just something that is in the Google for Education suite.
Oh, okay. So I'll just go on my other email and I'll check and see if it works there.
Yeah, I would suspect that would be the issue there, because I think that is just, I know they changed the name of this so much. G Suite, Google Workspace. I think it's called Google Workspace now. But
okay.
You have to be on an education account. I'm going to say 95% certain that that's going to be the case. If you move to your nlesd.ca account, everything would be fine.
Okay, perfect. I'll try that, and I'll just, if it's working, I'll just put it in the chat box that it's working.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So thanks, Tina. Somebody in the chat mentioned there's some things that they cannot toggle back and forth between, and I'm guessing it's like, does it seem like it's locked, perhaps? I'm not sure if Don wanted to speak to that one. They're not gray.
They're a different color than the ones that I can toggle.
They're a different color than the ones you can toggle.
And I'm on my NLSD account.
So which ones are you talking about there?
Just a second. I'll have to.
And one thing that you'll notice with Christine's, like she has I guess I'd say a purple theme going on. Hey, Christine, and that's just because of the color. But if you were to change colors, that could affect the little, I guess, accessory colors that you see there. Yeah.
Like the show progress bar, the shuffle question bar, show link to submit another response. There's several there that I cannot move.
You can't move?
No.
That is a bit strange. Is your Chrome updated, you think?
I think I've been using everything else.
I'll have to park that question and ask Andrea, because sometimes we are seeing some differences with respect to some of these issues. And this is the first time I've ever experienced this one. But I can certainly just have a conversation with Andrea and see if it's a update issue, whatever the case may be.
We could get you to share your screen if you wanted. Now, just keep in mind that we are recording, but it might be something that once we see it, we might be able to give you a hand with it. And something else I just want to mention about the locked mode. Students have to be on district or organization managed Chromebooks. If they're on their own device, a device that isn't managed by their domain, the lock mode wouldn't apply.
Yeah. And so to learn more about the lock mode, there's a little link here that, you can look at and get a little bit more information about. And it says right here, that respondents must have or be using the quiz using the managed Chromebook. Did you want to share your screen?
And if you want to do it at the end too, Don, we can certainly do that. That's up to you.
Yeah, that might be
at the end, not to take up everyone's
that's a good option.
Perfect. We'll keep that in mind. And there was another, Kelly had her hand raised there, Christine. So you go ahead, Kelly.
Hi, I just wanted to double check something. I was playing with this yesterday with my students, and I did it one time and I wasn't able to view their email addresses. The results came in, but I couldn't see who did what. And then I did it another time. I flicked something over and I was able to see who did what. So is that do I have to make sure under defaults, collect email addresses by default? Would that take care of that to make sure I get to see who's doing what?
This right here, if you went to this and you had that, it would, every question you make by default would always collect the email addresses. Yeah.
Perfect. All right.
You wouldn't have to worry about always going back and changing it, making sure it's there. If that was toggled over, then any questions you make then in your settings, you should be able to get to see their email addresses.
Who did what? Excellent. Thank you.
Kelly, if we're doing something, so for example, if we're doing something where we're want the Francophone School District to be able to fill things in, we always make sure to put a blank in where they fill in their name, they fill in their email, so it might be different.
Yeah.
But the NLESD one is great if you're dealing with only NLESD accounts, of course.
Yeah, and that would be it with the little ones.
Right.
Yeah. Because we've had cases where teachers have gotten in contact with me and said, I'm trying to send a survey home, basically, to my parents, but my parents are all telling me they can't see it. And so it's because of the fact that the parents don't have an NLESD.ca account and they're not able to access the form because of that setting that is toggled on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Perfect. And Jeanette, you want to go ahead there?
Yeah, so just further to that. So is that the only way then to keep track of whose quiz is being submitted, by having that email toggled on, collect emails, or would it be you would put the first question as what is your name, like you just said about the other district? So basically, is that the only way? How would we know who the quiz is coming from if we didn't have that turned on?
For the collection of your responses and you're looking at them in Google Forms, you wouldn't. You would have to have that on, or ask them for that information in the Google form when you're looking at the responses in Google form. When you look at the summary,
Okay.
Yeah.
So for it being a quiz, then the best option is to have that toggled on.
Yeah, if you're using this with younger students, then maybe just ask them their initials or something that you have as a unique identifier for them. If you didn't want to put them to put their name and all that stuff in the in the form.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So with that, that's the settings. We're actually just going to get now and go over. So what I'm looking at right now, this is the teacher's perspective. So as soon as you see questions, responses, settings up here, I know that I'm in the teacher mode, and I'm going to click on questions here. And what we're going to do now, the third thing in my, I guess, slide deck, or in our slide deck of things to do, is obviously give your form a name. So we can either do it here or here. I'm just going to go up. And I don't know. I'm going to call mine TESIC Live Demo. Give your form a name. And as soon as I do the update here and just click anywhere, it automatically puts the exact same title right here on top. You can give your form a description if you want, just by clicking down below. And right now, it says that this is automatically collecting emails for NLESD users. The good thing about this, it gives you a visual prompt to tell you that this is what the setting is. And now, if I forgot about it, I'm like, oh, well, no, I didn't want this just for NLESD. I wanted it to send home to parents, whatever. I can click on this right here and still have the ability to change the settings. So let's just, I don't know, my form description. We're just going to do some examples of different items in forms. Your first question here, as you see, it pops up as being, the first question by default. You'll see that. What you're going to do is right now, we're going to add a question. This is the first question. If I want to change what the question is asking, all I need to do is click on where it says untitled question, and then I can have it kind of open up and give me this area right now that I can type in, if I wanted to, what is your name? Very simply. And it's kind of got like this cool ability to be able to understand the fact that, oh, this must be a short answer. So before it was on multiple choice. But based on the question that I'm asking, it kind of realizes and it has a prediction that what you're actually looking for is a short answer. This drop-down arrow here allows you to see all of the different sort of types of questions that you can potentially ask. If you want it, you can just click that arrow and see short answer, paragraph. There's a lot of different things. Multiple choice, that means only one option is available. If you pick check boxes, that means there's more than one option could be possible. The drop down would be, you basically are choosing from a drop down list. You can choose to have a file upload. There's a lot of different things here. A linear scale, for instance, how would you rank your ability to use Google Forms on a scale of 1 to 10? So you can put in a question like that. You can do the multiple choice grid and the checkbox grid. You can play around with those later if you want. And you can also, if you wanted to, have the date and time as a possibility. We're going to look at the first few here. And this one here is just completely text. I'm just saying, what is your name? It's picking up the fact that I want a short answer. And you can, because this is a quiz, you can put in the answer key. Now, in this case, obviously, there is no true answer to this, so you wouldn't have to actually put in anything. But I'm just going to click on this so you can sort of see what it looks like. So if I click on the blue answer key, what pops up is what is the correct answer. And you can actually then, if you want, add answer feedback. So you can actually add feedback based on an answer if you want. Now, the fact that I'm asking a question that there's no true answer, this is technically probably not the best thing to actually show you with respect to that. So I'm just going to cancel this for a second. And I'm just going to say, what is your name? So right now, all I'm going to do is just click on done, because I'm not going to change any of that, because truly all I'm wanting here is a bit of like information. What is your name? And there's no right or wrong. If I wanted to add a second question to this, what I can do is come over here to the little plus and just click on add question. It will populate a second question. And it usually populates it down below the first question. If it didn't, you can easily move it around by just hovering over those 6 little dots here. If you hover over those 6 little dots, I can just click down on that and I can change the order of my questions. So if it added the question in the wrong location, again, you would just click on those 6 little dots and you can move it to wherever you want that question. So right now, let's just do a simple multiple choice question. And I'm just going to do what is 2, a really simple one, plus 2. So it's picking up the fact that, you know, as a prediction, it's probably looking for a multiple choice. And that is, in fact, what I'm looking for. And now I can put in my options. So I would just click here where it says option 1. I'm just going to put in the answers. I'm just going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this case, if I wanted to do an answer key, this one would be very applicable to providing an answer key. And I can do that. Click on the answer key. And it says, basically, you're going to pick the correct answer. So hopefully 4. And as you can see, the little check mark pops up over here. Now, I can add answer feedback here. And the good thing about this is when I click on the add answer feedback, it'll ask me, what feedback do you want to give to those who possibly have the incorrect answer? So you can put, you know, whatever it is here in the feedback, and you can have a link to some, you know, site or whatever, maybe explaining the addition a little bit more with counters or whatever the case may be. Or you can actually put in a video link as part of your feedback as well. So if I wanted to put in a video, I can just click on that for the incorrect answers. Maybe I want them to possibly look at maybe a YouTube video on adding single digits in primary. And if you found something that you really like, maybe it's this single digit addition. So you've watched it, you previewed it. Yeah, I would like my students to be able to review this. Click on that. You would click select. And right now, you can put in your feedback. Please watch this video for help. For the correct answers, you can put in, you know, great work. Keep it up, or whatever you want to put in there. And you would just click save. Then you can see that this is what the feedback will be. And if you want to edit it or delete it, you can certainly do that as well. And this is what the feedback will be for the incorrect answers. And you have the ability to go back and edit it and or delete it if you wanted to. So that's really good there. And in this case, you have the ability to assign a point value here if you wanted to. And I'm just going to do this for formative assessment purposes. So I'm going to leave this at 0. So if you're happy with that question, then all you would have to do is click done. And as you can see down here, it is being a required question. So that would mean that if you send this preview or you send the link out, you send the form to your students, they would have to answer this question in order to be able to submit the form. So based on that, is there any questions?
Nothing in the chat right now, Christine. Looks good.
Okay. So you can continue on adding questions, adding different things, and some really interesting things that you can do here as well. If you have images. So I'm going to add another question again. In this case right here, if you wanted to add an image as part of your question stem, you can certainly do that as well. So right now, if I just look up, I can upload images. I can do images by camera, Google Drive, or Google Image Search. If I wanted to do a Google Image Search, we were talking about moose earlier. So if I just found, picture of a moose. And whichever one that you see that you like, I'm just going to click on it. You can see that it's sort of highlighted in blue. Just click on insert. And the image is inserted here, and you can scale that image down a little bit if it's too large. And if your question is, I don't know, what is this animal? And I know and if you wanted to, you could just put in herbivore, omnivore, or carnivore, or whatever the case may be. So what is this animal classified as, maybe? I don't know if that would be the correct terminology, if I can spell it. And we can put in our carnivore, herbivore, omnivore, and I have no idea what a fourth option would be. That's the worst part of multiple choice, trying to come up with a good option. So as a consequence, I'm just going to leave it right here. If I had an option that I wanted to get rid of, so right now you can see it just says option 4. If I didn't want anything there, I can just hit that little X and it removes. If I want it and I'm okay with this, I can do the exact same process I did before. I can put in an answer key just by clicking that. A moose is a herbivore, and then I can do my feedback for both incorrect and correct responses the same way as what I did previously. So you could certainly continue on, and you not only do you have the ability to put images as part of the question stem, but you can also put images and things of that nature with respect to the different options here as well. So to give you some indication, I guess, of some of the different things that you could potentially do with Google Forms, I do have a Google form here that I can share out with everybody. And when you're sharing this with students, this is super important. This is not the link here that you're sharing with your students. If you share the link here up in what I'm highlighting here, up in the section, if you share that, they will see the exact same things that you see. They will be able to go in and edit and change these questions. That's not what you want. You want to be able to just have them to see the preview or the live form. So what you would have to do is here, click on the little eyeball, and that little eyeball will show you what it looks like in preview mode. So this is what the students will see. This is the link that you could possibly share, or so you can see that there, that's what they have. Or because I'm still in teacher mode now, I have this little pencil down below. So if I click on that little pencil, that will bring me back to the editing form. So this is the editing view. You can also just come up here to send. And if you click on send, it gives you different ways that you can share this with students. So it's either by email. Often the most thing that I would recommend is obviously clicking on the link. It gives you the option of shortening the URL. This is really good because oftentimes this is like going to be a very long link, and shortening it is a good option. So click on that. This then I would copy, and you can share that with your students in their Google Classroom, and they can access this form and be able to fill it out. That's super important because I'm still seeing instances of teachers sending out the incorrect link when they're actually trying to get their students to fill out their forms with them.
Something that you also can do in Google Classroom, if you're creating an assignment, instead of attaching the link, you can create an assignment and search for the Google form from your drive and make it as an attachment. And that will also create it so that when the student clicks on it, it's automatically the student view.
Yeah.
So that you could do it that way as well. Just search the Google form from your drive and attach it to the assignment in Google Classroom as well.
I guess all the other things here that I've based on those 10 basic things, the other thing that I guess I want to mention is you can leave it in whatever kind of visual format it is now. If you wanted something different in terms of the appearance, then this right here, If you click on it, it kind of looks like a color palette or a paint palette. If you click on that, you can actually customize the theme. Clicking on this, you can choose your own image for the header. You can choose the theme color, the background color, the font style, the different things here. The font style, this is probably one thing that I'm not 100% happy with. You only get a certain amount of options with respect to the font. Google Forms doesn't seem to have the same, I guess, options as what some of the other Google tools have. But if you want it, you can certainly play around with that and you can change what it looks like and things like that. The other thing that I want, I guess I'm going to give you an example of a form that I have done up, and I'm just going to get you to look at that form. If I can get the link here now.
I think I've got it in the chat there, Christine.
Excellent. So yeah, so all I did is I put together just some different things of what you can potentially do within Google Forms, images, and I just tried to use some of the different aspects. You'll probably notice that that particular form, and I'll bring it over here now. Hopefully you can click on that link that Melissa has put in the chat and answer some of those questions so we can get to see what some of the data will look like when it's actually collected. So if you look at this, some of these forms, if you're not familiar, some of these questions, have this little asterisk by it, and the little red asterisk just means that this is required. I made, I think, all of these questions required with the exception of the one that is a file upload. So I just said, write a brief introduction to yourself. As you can see, it does not have the actual little red asterisk next to it. So you do not need to actually fill that one out, but you still can submit your form. So if you can, just click on that, and please, by all means, put in some, incorrect responses so we can look at the data.
And this form is within the settings, like Christine mentioned earlier. It is specifically for NLESD accounts, so you will have to use your NLESD account. Everybody in our session today is NLESD, but if they weren't, we would certainly open that up to outside. So it is collecting email addresses.
Yeah. So I knew prior to the start of this that there was no CFSP teachers here, so that's why I left that setting the way it was. So let's hopefully now to be able to see some of the responses. So this has been sent out to, a few individuals, and they have put some responses in as well. So in addition to everybody else here today, what you need to do in order to be able to see these responses. So I'm going to go back again. I am the owner of this form. And right now I still have a little pencil. You're not going to see that pencil, but I have the pencil because I'm the owner of this form. Right now there's 7 responses, and you can see that by the middle tab here, that there's 7 people who have answered successfully this. Now, I did put a question in where there's a video of the moose or whatever. You don't really just answer 2 questions, but you don't necessarily need to view that video in order to answer the questions. It doesn't matter if your answers are incorrect or not. I just wanted to be able to show the fact that you can insert a question into a Google form that does have a video component to it. So now, before we look at the responses, I guess one other thing that I would like possibly to mention is you can add a collaborator, or if you want to think about it, like a co-teacher or another teacher. So if you say, for instance, myself and Melissa wanted to collaborate on a form and put a form together for our 2 classes, because we're teaching probably, 2 sections of the, 2 grades, 2 of the same grade levels, and we want to collaborate and make a common form. You can actually go up here to this more section here with the 3 little dots and click on that. And you have the option here to add collaborators. So all you would need to do is to be able to click on that and then just enter the email address of whoever it is that you want to be able to be a collaborator on your form. So if I just click on that right now, it tells me we can see that there's collaborators on this. And so All you would have to do is put their names in, click done, and then they will get notification that they're a collaborator on this. So I got 10 responses now. So if I want to see what the responses look like, all I would need to do is to click on this response tab here. I can see that there's 10 responses. Right now, this form is active. So if you have a form and you want it to stop accepting responses, just toggle that over. And even when your students then or anybody clicks on the link that you provided, it will just come up and say that this is no longer an active form, no longer accepting responses. So you can turn off and turn on the form itself as well. There's 3 different tabs here that you can look at based on the responses that you have. So you can get a summary of your class. You can look at the questions individually to see what questions people are having the most difficulty with. And you can see that there's 8 questions here. So right now I'm looking at question 1. So I can scroll down and see, what's happening and go through each of the questions and understand, I guess, what's happening. So it's a good kind of analysis because you can look at what questions are having a little bit of difficulty with and focus on those later on in your teaching. Or you can look at the individual level right here and see what each of the individual people are having any difficulties with. What I like, I'm not really keen on this view of it. What I really like looking at in terms of the responses is being able to look at it in the spreadsheet view. So if I wanted to be able to see all the responses in the spreadsheet view, this is how I like to look at it. This little green thing here, if you just hover over it, it says create a spreadsheet. So as soon as I click on this, it's going to prompt me to create a spreadsheet that is linked to this Google form. So if I click on this, it's going to say create a new spreadsheet, and I just leave it here and click on create. What will happen now is that you will have a linked spreadsheet, and all of the information here, as you can see, is being collected for you, and you can scroll across and get a better bird's eye view of what's happening in terms of, say, a particular question. So this question here, everybody had that question, right? All right, that's not something that I probably need to revisit. However, if you saw something that they were having a little bit of difficulty with, then certainly, you can say, oh, right here, if, I saw that there was a particular question that students are having difficulty with, then I would know that, okay, that's something probably I need to review. I like this option a lot more than looking at the Google form kind of summary of it. And again, because it's collecting the individual email addresses, I can see what particular students, as I scroll across and look at student by student, and I can look at it then by columns and look at it by question and get a better understanding of what's happening with respect to whatever it is I'm, wanting to take away from this particular formative assessment, if that's what you're using it for.
And you might notice there too, the first few responses that went in, there are no email addresses associated, and that's from a few days ago when we were playing around with this form. So those ones went in when email addresses were not required yet. So those responses were recorded without email addresses, but then once that was changed, anything that went in today, of course, has the email addresses there. So you can see the difference of what that looks like. So you can change your form
on the fly.
On the fly, exactly. It's just going to affect the data from people who filled in that form beforehand or afterwards, but you are able to change it as you go, which is a nice option.
So that is, I know, sort of just the 10 basic steps or 10 basics that we sort of had planned for today. I know we still have about 15 minutes left, and not sure if anybody has any questions with respect to anything that has been shown so far, or
Christine, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording there, and that way, if anybody has any questions, they can feel free to ask them.